I was 15 when I lost both of my parents. My uncles always said they were doing their best for me, but in reality, they stole the inheritance my parents left behind. And when I turned 18, they kicked me out. Call me ungrateful if you want. But stupid? I'm not. Hi, my name is Emily. And this is the story of how I took my uncles to court. Grab your coffee, take a breath, and listen all the way through. Because what happened next, they never saw coming. My parents died in a car crash when I was 15. I don't remember much from that day, just the sound of the doorbell and the empty look in the officer's eyes. Everything after that was just silence. No one explained anything. I just followed orders. Sign this paper, pack your things, collect a death certificate. In less than a week, my entire life had been reduced to a checklist, and I had become someone else's unwanted responsibility. I was placed in the custody of my mom's relatives, the closest family, they said. Polite in public, cold behind closed doors. They greeted me with a forced smile but no hug. In the car, I remember hearing, "We'll do what we can." Like I was a case file, not a niece. No one asked if I was okay. At first, I tried not to be a burden. I was grateful to have a roof over my head, but I always felt like I was taking up space. I slept in a windowless room on a creaky twin bed. My clothes were folded into an old dresser in the corner. No photos. No keepsakes. It was like my old life had been erased, and nobody cared enough to ask about it. My uncles talked about costs all the time. They made it sound like taking care of me was some kind of charity. Every school lunch was noted. Every medicine came with a price breakdown. I stayed quiet. I'd already learned that asking questions hurt more than staying silent. And month by month, I stopped feeling like a person and more like a bill they couldn't wait to stop paying. But I did know one thing. My parents had left a house in another state and a savings account in my name. I'd overheard whispers about it at the funeral. But once I moved in with my uncles, that topic disappeared. Whenever I asked, they'd brush it off with, "We're taking care of the paperwork." Over time, I realized they didn't want me to know anything. I had no access to documents, bank info, or conversations. I was just there, on the edge of my own life. My birthdays came and went without a word. They always forgot about school meetings. And when others asked about me, they'd say, "We're doing our best." Teenagers are tough. I wasn't family. I was a duty. My days were the same. Wake up, go to school, come straight home, and stay in my room. No TV. No visitors. No friends. Just silence. But in that silence, I learned how to listen to what people don't say. How my aunt avoided eye contact. How my uncle would lock his office door when he was on the phone. How their voices always dropped when I walked into the room. It wasn't just neglect, it was control. They wanted me quiet, grateful, powerless, and it worked. For a while, I really believed I owed them everything. But deep down, there was still a part of me that remembered who I was, who my parents were, and that part of me wouldn't let go. I was only 15, but I already knew, to survive, I had to become invisible. What I didn't know yet was just how far they'd go to erase me completely. I turned 18 on a Tuesday. No happy birthday. No cake, not even a card. Just my aunt calling me into the living room with a cold, flat tone. "You're an adult now. Time to make your own way." Next to the door was a small suitcase, a few pieces of clothing, a printed document with instructions on how to renew my ID, and an envelope with $80 in cash. They said they'd done a lot for me, fed me, given me a roof, treated me like a daughter. I didn't respond. I just nodded and walked out, made my way to the bus station with silence burning in my chest, bought the cheapest ticket I could find. Destination, the town where my parents used to live, where I was born, where by all rights, the house of my childhood should still be waiting for me. The trip took nearly a full day, and when I arrived, everything felt smaller. The streets, the houses, even the air. I hopped on a local bus and got off near my old neighborhood. Walked to the street I grew up on, my stomach tight with nerves. I expected to see the blue door, the garden with mint, the window where my mom used to wave from. What I saw instead was a different color on the gate, and a sign that said, "Private property, the Walker family." The house had been sold. I had no idea when it happened. No idea who bought it, or for how much. I stood there on the sidewalk for a long time, frozen. Then I walked to the nearest coffee shop, bought a small cup just to use the Wi-Fi, looked up the bank branch where my parents had opened my account years ago. Then I walked there, holding on to hope like a lifeline. At the bank, I showed my ID and asked if there were any accounts under my name. The woman typed, paused, typed again, then looked up at me with pity and said, "That account's been closed. No balance." I asked for a transaction history. She said she couldn't give me one. The account had been closed months ago. I didn't understand. Or rather, I understood exactly. That account was supposed to have $142,000. Money my parents had saved to support me until I could stand on my own. But it was gone. Every cent. No records, no transactions, like it had never existed. Except it had. My parents had told me. Even the lawyers confirmed it back then. I stepped back onto the street carrying more than just financial loss. It felt like the last safety net my parents left me had been ripped away. I walked to a stationery store, bought a notebook and a pen, started writing down everything I could remember, names, dates, estimated amounts. Then I looked for somewhere cheap to stay. I found a rundown hotel downtown. The carpet was stained, the water was cold, but it had a bed. That night I didn't cry. I couldn't. I just stared at the cracked ceiling and replayed the scene with the suitcase by the door. That image wouldn't leave me. They kicked me out with a speech about how much they'd done for me, like I owed them something. But what I really owed was a response. Not to them, to myself. And in that tiny room, in total silence, I made a decision. If they took everything from me, I was going to get every last cent back. I got a temp job at a diner near the hotel. I washed dishes, wiped tables, and occasionally worked the counter. The pay was low, but every tip felt like a win. At night, I'd go back to my room and start researching. I read everything I could about wills, minor inheritance laws, and the legal responsibilities of guardians. I filled up a notebook I bought for $1.50, and little by little, the puzzle started coming together. I found out that my parents' house had been sold just 5 months after they died. They sold it for $345,000, way more than anything raising a niece could justify. And I never saw a dime. In fact, my uncles never once mentioned the word sale. It was like the house just disappeared. I kept digging. A bank employee helped me access archived info from my old account. The $142,000 my parents left me had been withdrawn in monthly chunks. The withdrawals were made using a power of attorney, one I never signed. Turns out my uncle had claimed to be my legal representative until I turned 18. Altogether, the total amount they drained came to $487,000. Nearly $500,000, stolen under the excuse of taking care of me. Meanwhile, I was sleeping on a sagging mattress, skipping dinner on Wednesdays, and wearing the same beat-up sneakers for 3 years. No private doctor visits. No computer. With every new detail I uncovered, my stomach twisted. And still, that wasn't the worst part. I started investigating what they'd done with all that money, and what I found knocked the air out of me. I searched property records in their state, and there it was. They bought a new house. Recent purchase. Valued at $280,000. So they hadn't just sold my parents' house. They used the money to buy another, under their own names. And it didn't stop there. They had started a landscaping company, with trucks, a business website, the whole package. It was all shiny and new. All very expensive. Their website tagline, a family business, built with hard work and dedication. I read it out loud and almost laughed. Hard work. Dedication. They funded that business with the future of an orphan. I spent days processing it all. Waking up for work like nothing was wrong. Then staying up late, connecting the dots. Dates, numbers, transfers. I tried reaching out to lawyers, but most asked for upfront payment. And I didn't have it. What I did have was persistence. And proof. Every new document was another brick in the case I was quietly building. I told no one. Had no friends in town. Didn't want to tip them off. I had one goal, to expose everything. Not just to reclaim what was mine, but to make sure they knew I knew. That I'd seen it all. And that now it was my move. The last straw came when I saw a photo of their new house on the company's Instagram. The caption said, "Our home. Our new beginning." That was it. The silence was over. I wasn't going to accept it anymore. I was going to fight back. A coworker at the diner was the one who referred me to a lawyer. She told me the woman had a reputation for taking on tough cases, especially ones involving guardianship and inheritance. I booked the consultation, nervous I didn't have enough, but I brought everything I had: bank statements, property sale dates, screenshots of the real estate records. The lawyer listened in complete silence, and when I finished, she said, "We're going all the way. You've got a solid case." We filed immediately. She launched a lawsuit for misappropriation of funds, fraud, and abuse of guardianship. We requested asset freezes, a full forensic audit, and the return of the stolen inheritance, adjusted for inflation. The documents spoke for themselves: the emptied account, the unauthorized sale of my parents' house, the purchase of a new property right after. It was all right there, black and white. My uncles were served. It didn't take long for them to message me. They said I was being unfair, ungrateful, claimed they had done everything for me. Later, I learned they even tried to convince the judge that I was unstable, full of resentment, and that the house and money had been used entirely to raise me. But paperwork doesn't lie. The bank statements show the withdrawals, in their names, transfers into their joint accounts, the new house registered under them, with a down payment made just weeks after my parents' house was sold. The paper trail was undeniable. They didn't just spend my inheritance, they profited from it. And now, they were trying to silence me all over again. The judge approved the financial investigation and opened the floor for testimony. I had to relive it all: the windowless room, the silence, the isolation. I spoke with a steady voice, even when my throat went dry. I spoke like someone who had swallowed pain for years. Each hearing felt like lifting a weight off my chest. And even exhausted, I knew I was closer to justice than I'd ever been. They stalled, made up new stories, presented fake spreadsheets of made-up expenses. It didn't work. The forensic report was clear. Most of the money had been used for personal benefit, and nothing they submitted matched any real expenses for my health, education, or basic care. They hadn't cared for me. They had exploited my vulnerability. The case dragged on for months, but with each step, I grew more confident. I watched my uncles unravel in the face of the facts. They tried to settle out of court, but my lawyer didn't budge. Full amount or judgment. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone was in my corner. And maybe, just maybe, the system would actually work this time. At the final hearing, the judge read the verdict with the cold tone of someone simply doing their job. Guilty. They were ordered to repay the full amount, $487,000, plus interest. As we left the courtroom, my uncles walked right past me without a glance. But I saw their faces. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. Fear of knowing I wasn't that quiet little girl they used to control anymore. And I walked out the same way I walked in silence. But inside, for the first time in years, I felt whole. After the verdict, my uncles tried to make a deal. They called my lawyer, asked for compassion, said they couldn't pay the full amount all at once. They admitted to mistakes, but said they didn't deserve to lose everything. She said no. Then they tried to propose a ridiculous payment plan, something like 20 years. Again, the answer was no. They wanted pity. I wanted justice. The judge gave them a deadline to comply. When they didn't, the house they were living in, the one bought with part of my inheritance, was seized and mortgaged. It was used as collateral to cover part of the debt. Their landscaping business was also pulled into the case. Since it was in both of their names, it became fair game. The judge ruled that the business would be transferred to me. So now, legally, I own the company they built using my parents' money. I didn't shut it down. I didn't even show up. I just sent a new manager to take over. Changed the name on the sign, the uniforms, and the branding. Kept the employees. The business still runs, but they have no connection to it anymore. And everyone in town knows it. They still live in the same city. When they see me on the street, they look away, cross to the other side. I don't know if it's guilt or fear. I don't care. I never wanted to humiliate them. I just wanted back what was mine. And now, finally, every cent is being paid back. They can pretend nothing happened. But every month, the reminder arrives. Right on time. A fixed amount, set by the court, hits my account every month. The payment comes under their names. It's all documented, filed, stamped. Each new receipt goes into the folder where I've kept the entire case. I make a point of keeping everything. Not out of revenge, but because I fought too hard to reclaim what they tried to erase. I never responded to the messages they sent after the verdict. Not even when they asked for one final conversation. I didn't want to talk. Didn't want excuses. They had 3 years to do the right thing. They chose silence, deception, and greed. Now they're paying for it, with interest. People still try to tell me to let it go, to move on. But none of them ever slept on the mattress I slept on. None of them heard the things I heard, or skipped meals the way I did. This isn't bitterness. It's respect. Respect for what my parents left behind. And for myself. What's right is right, even if it takes time. Now, there are no more voices telling me what I have to accept. No suitcase by the door. No cold dinners. Just justice, delivered month after month. And their names at the bottom of every payment slip. With what I had left from the case, I bought my own house. It's not big. It's not fancy. But it's mine. My name is on the deed. I signed every document. Picked every detail. And after everything I've been through, turning the key in that front door without asking anyone's permission, that's worth more than any luxury. The first thing I did was plant a simple garden, mint, lavender, and a few white flowers. I like taking care of it myself. It's quiet, the kind of quiet I used to endure in silence. Except now it feels different. Now silence feels light, peaceful. Out on the porch, I keep a blue folder. Inside are all the documents from the case, every receipt, every statement. Each month, I update my spreadsheet and print a new payment slip. The money comes in slowly, but it comes, and that's what matters. My uncles pretend nothing ever happened. On social media, they post like everything's fine. They say they're starting fresh, overcoming challenges, but the records tell a different story. In the bank system, the courthouse, the legal files, they're not starting over. They're repaying, in installments, by court order, and they'll keep repaying for years. The debt was set at $487,000 plus adjustment. That number is printed in big, bold letters on the contract they signed in front of the judge. That contract is locked in the safe in my room. Not out of pride, but protection. They can't touch what's mine anymore. They can't hide. They can't lie, because now it's all in writing and signed. At the bottom of the last page, just beneath the debtor clause, are their names. Full names. Notarized. No excuses. No, we thought it was best. Just ink and a seal, proving the debt is real, was proven, and is being collected. Every month. No exceptions. I didn't tell the story for revenge. Or for applause. I told it because people think time erases things. But it doesn't. Time reveals. It shows who's who lies, who takes, and who survives. And sometimes, if you don't lower your head, time shows who wins. I spent years not knowing where I'd sleep. Now I sleep in peace. I spent years being told I should be grateful for scraps. Now no one owes me anything. What I have is mine, and what I receive is too, because justice might take time. But when it arrives, it comes with a signature stamped by the court, and with the right names, in the right place. If you like this story, leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and if you want to help me keep telling these stories, you can buy me a coffee. The link is there in the first pinned comment. Every cup helps me keep bringing you more stories.